about the courage to be grateful. And my talk today is give thanks. But I figured since we are heading into the holiday week, and I'm a little bit of a realist. I know that holidays are wonderful and our time with our family is so lovely, and that Norman Rockwell picture of what it's supposed to be like with a big turkey on the table and everybody's smiling, right? I hope that's what you had growing up. It's not what I did, but that's why I'm a little bit of a realist. So I wanted to remind us as we go into this cooking marathon that there's even when stuff happens, because stuff happens, that we could be grateful. So I'm going to share with you the silver lining to burning a turkey. And so I love to give you the end at the beginning. So we're going to give thanks for all things, right? And there's even things that we can be grateful for, if just in case. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but just in case you burn your turkey. This is what you can be grateful for. You can be grateful that you don't have to worry that anybody at your dinner party is going to get salmonella. Okay. That you can be grateful, working with Dr. Victoria, that no one's going to overeat. Okay? You can walk around and say, look, I did Cajun blackened turkey this year. That those uninvited guests, that just decided to hook on to your guest, they're going to think twice about coming next year. You can be grateful that your cheese, broccoli, lima bean casserole is going to gain a newly found appreciation. You can be grateful that your pets aren't going to beg for scraps from the table. It was time to check that smoke alarm, so now you can be grateful that your smoke alarm works. Right? That you can be grateful that you'll get your cardio workout just by carving the turkey. Right? You can be grateful that just even though you may have forgotten to buy a football, you can take the turkey out afterwards and play football with it in the backyard. And we can be grateful that the less turkey Uncle George eats, the less likely he's going to be to unzip his pants and walk around all day. You can be grateful that you'll get to dessert quicker. And finally, you can be grateful that you won't have to eat 3 weeks of turkey sandwiches. So there you go. So just in case something happens, just remember you can always find something to be grateful for. And I know that that's not going to happen to anybody's turkey. So in terms of talking about the idea of giving thanks, I wanted to start with this. From my perspective, and this is definitely philosophy according to Rev K, I believe that at the core of this teaching, at the core of the science of mind, is the idea that we are called to deepen our relationship and our walk with God. And I think that that's the most important thing, is that we need to find individually that connection to something greater. And I think that flows through all the rest of the philosophy that gets really heady, and we can talk about all the great stuff about it. But when it comes down to it, what I try to do every week is encourage you to find a deeper relationship with that thing that's bigger than you are. And I try to remind you that that you're a part of it, that there's no separation. And so when we talk about deepening our relationship with God, we're talking about the idea that there is something greater that loves you so much that wants to pour itself forth to you, through you, around you, and give you all of these blessings of this experience that life is. There's a mystery to life, right? But if we pause and connect, what everybody realizes is that there's purpose to it. There's a reason for it. And the truth is there's a reason for you. There's a reason for you to be alive at this time. And so often I talk about whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it God or Spirit, the universe, love, the force, whatever you want to do. Star Wars is coming. It's less than a month. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. Yay, I'm so excited. Okay. So we'll talk about the force. That force, that thing that you are, and the reason why I love that concept of the force is that there's a propulsion within us, isn't there? There's just something that wants to live, that wants to throw ourselves into life, that wants to give ourselves, that wants to be bigger, that wants to expand and grow. That's why I love that concept of the force, by the way. That's why I talk about that so much. But anyway, so the idea is that I often call it the God of your heart for a reason. Because it's not my God. It's not the way that I connect with God. It's not some other religion's idea of God. It's not something outside of you. And the only way that you're going to find what that impulse is within us, whether it's peace or whether it's acceptance, whether it's comfort or whatever it is within you that's wanting to be experienced, you can only find it in your own heart. Your God is alive within you. And so the best, quickest, easiest way to connect with that is through gratitude. Is through practicing that idea of appreciation and looking around and seeing what's going right, and seeing what the blessing is, and seeing what the joy is here. Because that is the quickest way to open that door to feel it on a deeper level. To understand that your life is in context to something bigger. Because when we put our attention on something, it expands. When we put our attention on something, it grows, it multiplies. And so I was thinking this week, the difference between a pessimist and an optimist is that a pessimist has perfected the muscles, has exercised and perfected the muscles of negativity. And an optimist is someone who has worked the muscles, has gained strength in optimism and a can-do attitude, right? Looking at what's right. And it's just like any artist, any performer, you need to practice it. It's not something that we can feel gratitude one day and put it in the closet and say, okay, here I go into the world and I'm there, right? I'm living a life of gratitude. I was thankful for my oatmeal. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. That's why we call it spiritual practice. That's why we come back week to week. That's why we do our spiritual reading. That's why we surround ourselves with positive people. That's why we hang out with people who see us for who we are. That's why we fill ourselves with this understanding that there's something greater happening here, because the world is not going to support you in staying positive. Walk around a day, right? And be conscious of what's going on in the world right now. Oh my goodness. It's not going to remind you to be grateful. It's going to tell you that you don't have enough. Look, Black Friday's coming, right? And they're going to tell you that you don't have enough and you need this sale and you need this stuff, not only for yourself but for everybody else. They're not going to love you unless you get them a big Christmas present, right? Like this whole culture that we're living in is not going to support us in realizing that we are enough, we have enough, there is enough, and that we should be grateful for what we've got. Now, obviously, there's always an evolution. There's always a challenge. There's always something that's coming down the pike in our lives. But when we steep ourselves in practice, waking up to what the blessings are, waking up to what we can be grateful for ourselves and our lives and everybody around us, that's what we see more of. That's what we bring more into this world. There's this little meme, I can't believe I'm doing this, but because I didn't get it off today. There's this little meme that's been going around social media that has all of these dark circled, unhappy faces. Has anybody seen that one? Have you seen it? I'll share it. But so it's all these little circles that are very sad faces, And then there's this one smiley face that comes down from the top and it sits in the middle, right? And its glow starts to transform everybody around it. And pretty soon, all the sad faces turn into happy faces, right? Do you know what it feels like when you're having a crappy day and you go sit with someone who's peaceful? Or someone who's in joy? It's contagious. It's almost as contagious as the flu that's been going around my family. Let me tell you, right? I have done every possible thing to not get the flu. My whole family's down for the count, including the dogs. And I am like standing strong. I'm not going to get this. I am determined. But so that's the same thing, that when we're living in gratitude, when we can live in appreciation and thankfulness, it starts to spread. It starts to spread to the people around us. You start to attract people who are of like mind, who are of the same energetic. And then what happens is we're moving in our bubble of joy. That's what life's supposed to be like. That's what we're here for. We've come to experience the fullness of this life. And we do it by giving thanks, and it's through our practice. And it's, so there's all of the different practices. So you start your day with things that you're grateful for. You end your day with things that you're grateful for. You could have your special gratitude journal. You could have your file on your computer. You could make your list of things to be grateful for when you're driving. There's a million different ways to practice this. But the idea is that you have a sustained and systematic way of training yourself to be grateful. It's like your workout. You know that if you want to get strong, you need to work out every day. You can't do just one workout and then say, here I am, right? It's not going to work. But if you commit yourself to beginning, and every day you find a way to connect to that feeling of gratitude, then it starts to expand and your life starts to change. It's like magic. I found this quote that I loved so much this week, I think I'm going to print it out and put it on my wall. It says, as you wander on through life, sister and brother, whatever be your goal, keep your eye upon the donut and not upon the hole. Now that's from the Mayflower Coffee Shop from Chicago. All right. And so in order to do this, in order to practice gratitude and appreciation, what I think is really at the core of all of it, maybe it's just for me, and I'll admit maybe it is just for me, we are called to slow down. We need to slow down and navigate our life more mindfully, a little bit more consciously. So often we are whipping through this life, and I know family and kids and grandkids and stuff and everything, there's a million things to do. I know I just added 10 more things for you to do in our announcements that you could possibly participate in. I know I'm not helping here. But the idea is that when we allow ourselves to slow down is when we can actually see what's in front of us. So often we get hooked by what it is that's causing agitation in our life. So whatever that challenge is, whatever your fear is, whatever your worry is, whatever's coming up, that you have to deal with, that's what you're focused on. And even when you're making dinner, you're worried about the bills. Even when you're with your kids, you're worried about the doctor's appointment. Even when you're whatever, you're just connected to what it is that is operating. It's kind of like a computer program that's just running and running underneath whatever you're doing. And so you're not present to be able to see what's actually right. You're not present to actually see what is good, what the blessings are, what's coming forth. And because we don't want to deal with the negative, we are very good religious scientists. I'm not seeing the bad. That's baloney. Because when we pretend that it's not happening, all we do is give it power. Okay? And so my whole idea about this is that we have to be present enough to acknowledge, I'm afraid of this, or I'm worried about this. And when we go into it, what you're doing, when you're present with it, you can be where you are and start there and move on from that place. Because when we take our attention onto what the challenge is, it's like shining a light into the darkness. And if you can be present with it long enough, it starts to dissipate itself. Because you can realize your own self that you're worrying about something that you have no control over. And if you have no control over it, you know what you've got? You've got God. Okay? You've got God to support you in it. You've got God that's going to show up, and you may not know how, and you may not know when, and you may not know in what way, but there is a force that loves you so much, I can tell you, it wants to be there for you in any challenge, difficulty that shows up for you. But you have to allow it in, which means you got to slow down long enough to realize that it's there. Where's our faith? Do we believe in the negative, or do we know? Can we connect deeply, where I started today, to that feeling, that understanding that there's something greater happening here? And so when we slow ourselves down, we have an ability to be present with what is. We open our eyes and we can see what the blessings are around us. And so there's an idea from this man named David Coons. He encourages us to practice the still points. And those still points are moments during our day where we can practice the pause, right? And there's a lot of them. It starts when you're brewing your coffee, for my coffee friends. It takes a little while after you press the button for it to happen. When we're all at red lights, hello, we drive in Temecula. We're all at red lights halfway through the day, right? When we're waiting online somewhere, even when, we're using the facilities, there's a moment that you can pause, that you can be present, and you can start to see something to be grateful for. And when we do that, when we allow ourselves to be present where we are and not be upset that I have to wait and not be frustrated because I'm going to be late because I have 3 more red lights I got to get through and not be mad because the coffee's taking so long and I woke up late and I had a morning like I had this morning, let me tell you. You can allow your mind to spin out of control, or you can focus it and use it as a tool to deepen your understanding of appreciation for what's good in your life. So when we do that, when we pause, he reminds us to stop, to breathe, and remember. I love that. He says, stop, breathe, and remember. And what I want you to remember is I want you to remember that you're loved. I want you to remember that you're enough. I want you to remember that no matter what's going on in your life, that you're okay because you're part of something greater. You can start to notice the world around you. See, we have these 5 senses, right? We have these amazing 5 senses as humans. And we can engage in the world in a deeper way that way when we're mindful, practicing mindfulness, right? That's what I want to remind us for our Thanksgiving feast this year, is to eat mindfully, love that. Enjoy the meal, enjoy the time together. Don't be worried about the fact that the table doesn't look like what Martha Stewart thinks it should look like, right? It doesn't have to have, we have these expectations of what life's supposed to be like, and it really gets amplified at the holidays. It really just does. Please do not go on Pinterest and type in Thanksgiving tablescapes. That's not going to serve you. It's not going to help. But I'd rather you sit with one of your beloveds and have a conversation about appreciation, about how much you appreciate the people you're with. Even if it's Uncle Joe and he's got his pants unbuttoned. Right? Even with all the political conversations that may possibly go on. Don't worry, I'm praying for all of us this week. That there's peace and there's connection. Because that is the gift of gratitude. That's the idea of this whole holiday. And truth is, that's the idea of every day, because that's the idea of life. So not only do we have these 5 senses, but the truth is that we have the others, right? Well, we have things beyond that. We have our intuition. We have our creativity. And you cannot connect with creativity or your intuition if you're going 500 miles an hour. You can't. Creativity needs space. And it's not just if you're an artist, by the way. It's not just if you're a writer, or you're an artist, or you're a dancer, or a painter, or whatever. We are all artists of our lives. We are all artists of our lives. And so creativity is so important, but we cannot connect to it unless we allow ourselves the space to do it. The space to open, to be inspired. If we're running around like crazy trying to make everybody happy and trying to prove ourselves, there's no space for anything other than stress. And appreciation and gratitude can't live where there's only stress. It's the opposite. And so our intuition is that guidance system, our inner GPS that guides us, allows us to make our choices, and brings us to where we need to be for the highest and greatest blessing. I had a clear experience of that this week. I went up with my daughter and her dance friends to see the So You Think You Can Dance touring company, right? So we watched the show, and they got us tickets to go up and see the performance and the performers, and all the kids are all around the same ages. They're all about 11 and 12. And so they were so excited. They were so excited because they're all up-and-coming dancers, and they all watch the show, and they know every dancer's name, and they know every piece that they did, and they know all the choreographers. I'll tell you, that show really has done a lot for dance. I'm so happy about that. So we went up to Los Angeles on a rainy day, by the way. Oh, that was fun. And my friend, one of the other dance moms, yes, I'm a dance mom, she made the reservations for dinner. So we went up early enough that we could have dinner, and then we were going to go to the show. And we had like 4 kids, right? Like kids. And so she told us all the different restaurants that were around the theater. And I said, okay, one was an Italian. I said, okay, just make the reservation in Italian. I know that all the kids can eat there. I don't know how picky your kids are. My kid's pretty decent, but just let's go to the Italian restaurant. So then we get up there, and we find parking, and we're walking, and I said, we're going to the Italian place, and she said, no, I made a reservation, I changed my mind. I don't know why, I just decided to go to the Argentinian restaurant. I was like, really? Like Argentinian food? Okay, great. All right, but I was like, my kid's not going to eat anything. And I'm like looking for a CVS where I could buy a bar or bag of chips or something. I was like, oh my God, my kid's going to be starving, So we go to this, and it's like a kind of boutique restaurant too. We've got a party of 7 of us with 4 kids at a boutique restaurant and for Argentinian food. And I'm like, okay, if my husband and I were alone together in Los Angeles, this would be a great place to be, but what are we doing, And so my friend Amy said, yeah, I don't know, I just felt like okay. And I'm like, fine, I trust you, that's fine. So we go in, and I use the restroom, I come back, and all the kids are sitting at the table with their eyes bulging out of their heads. And I was like, are you okay? Did you find something to eat? What's going on, And they were like, the winner of So You Think You Can Dance is sitting right at the table. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And I look over, and there's Bailey, who is the winner, America's favorite dancer, is sitting right at the bar with his parents having dinner, okay? And here are 4 up-and-coming dancers with their eyes bulging out of their heads staring at me, It was like, oh my God. And Amy said, I just felt like I had to go to the Argentinian restaurant. And I'm like, I'm trusting you wherever you go, right? So, because if I had done that, if I had made that reservation, we would not have met Bailey. I would not have gotten to say to him, I'm so great, and he was so cute. This guy is, all our 11-year-olds are taller than he is. It's such an amazing thing. And so everything that unfolded, I was like, and what I love about my friend is that she is so connected to her intuition that she opens to allowing these things to happen. And I asked her through the rest of the night, I was like, well, tell me more about some things. She has the most amazing stories that she's met these people and these amazing things have happened, and all of that unfolds because she's connected to her intuition, because she doesn't question those impulses, because she allows space to connect on a deeper level. And I was so grateful that we didn't go my way, that we went her way. One of the things that David Kuhn says is there's an affirmation that he encourages us to use, which is, I acknowledge the blessings all around me right here and right now. I acknowledge all the blessings around me right here and right now. Together, ready? I acknowledge all the blessings around me right here, right now. One more time. I acknowledge all the blessings around me right here, right now. I expect that there's going to be 100 people stopping at red lights for the next week, as long as you remember it, saying this, right? And allowing all the blessings that are around you to multiply and to come into more experience for you. Because when it comes down to it, this is a way of life. It's a way of being. It's a way of aligning to life. And from Thessalonians, the teaching from the Bible is, in all things give thanks. It's not for the good stuff, give thanks. It's not just in the times of plenty and abundance, give thanks. It's in all things, give thanks. And so the idea is that we practice gratitude in spite of. We practice gratitude in spite of the fact that I've got a family that's down with the flu. I'm grateful, right? I'm grateful that I don't have it. In spite of the fact that whatever's happening, there is something magical, magnificent, and something always to be grateful for. And yes, it might take some work to find it. And yes, it might take a moment of pausing, or maybe a number of moments of pausing, to go deep enough to find what it is that you can be grateful for in every situation. But in everything, we are called to give thanks. The truth is that, we talk about not giving power. In religious science, we talk about not giving power to the challenge, not giving power to the disease, not giving power to what it is that's bothering us. But it doesn't mean we pretend it's not there. Like I said, we have power to transform our experience, but we have to acknowledge it first. And like I said, I want you to have that image of your awareness and your gratitude being like a headlamp in a cave. that you could find the blessing. Because sometimes life feels like we're in a cave. Sometimes it feels like we're traveling in the dark. But you have the light within you to find the blessing of it and to find your own way out. And so when you connect to that, you can see differently, you can see clearer. And so it reminds me of the passage from the Gospel of Matthew also, from the Bible, that's always been a little bit of a mystery and I've never really understood it. It says this, "Whosoever has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. And whosoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him." Right? Now, for my whole life, this one passage is the one thing that made me not like the Bible. It was the one that I was like, that makes no sense. I don't get it. It doesn't, what is that? What are we talking about? That the person who has is going to get more, and then, so that means the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? What does that mean, right? And it never made sense to me. Now, I read this week that one person had one of the writers that I read had a different take on it. But what she did was she answered the mystery by adding one word. Okay? So we'll see if I'm going to get struck by adding words to the Bible. I don't think so. She says this, "Whosoever has gratitude will be given more and will have an abundance. And whosoever does not have gratitude, even what he or she has, will be taken from him or her." Right? So what we know is that what we give out, we get back. Right? What we put out into this life, we get back. So the universe, and the universe likes to be acknowledged. Have you ever noticed that? That when we, I know it has something to do with our perception also, but have you ever thought of like, oh, maybe I'll get a red car. And then all you see are red cars, right? And I know we're focused on it, but that's how it works. When we focus on gratitude, all you're going to see are things to be grateful for. When we focus on our negativity, when we focus on our judgment, when we focus on what's wrong, all we're going to see is more things to be upset about and to be angry about. I can hear the parents of old, we're walking around judging things, right? And I can hear the universe as like a parent, our parents, saying, you want to complain? I'll give you something to complain about, right? Like I can almost hear the universe saying that to us. I'll give you something to complain about, And that seems to be what happens, right? Because it feels like when we're down, sometimes some more stuff happens before we can get ourselves out of the hole. And I've experienced that. I don't know if you have. But that's because that's where our full consciousness is. When we shift and we look the other way, we can start to see that there is blessing even amongst the pain, even amongst the challenge and the difficulty. Even the Quran speaks to the premise of gratitude as important. It says this, "And remember when God proclaimed, if you are grateful, I will give you more. But if you are ungrateful, verily, my punishment is severe." These words are describing the fundamental law of science and the universe, that we connect with life through our channel that we are and how we align to this. And so the main point is not to get more stuff. That's the thing I always want to point out. It's not about getting stuff. It's not about abundance and manifestation of things. It's not about that, but it's about the fullness of life. Things aren't bad. Abundance isn't bad. Money's not bad. Stuff's not bad. It's not but for its own sake, getting stuff for stuff's sake. I think most of us have realized that that's an empty pursuit. Even when you get the stuff, it doesn't fill the hole. But when we fill ourselves with that relationship to the one, when we align ourselves to the truth of who we are, and then our lives start to come from that fullness, all we have is this upward spiral of appreciation. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, says that gratitude is most salutary and bespeaks the realization that we are in heaven now. We can create heaven now. And the gateway to do that is through practicing gratitude. And so just because this month is over, it doesn't mean I'm going to stop talking about gratitude, right? Just because this is something that is that perfect first easy step into spiritual practice. If you think sitting around and meditating is too much for you right now, if you don't understand our kind of prayer, which is spiritual right treatment, you haven't been in class yet, or whatever it is, if that spiritual practice is too much for you, start with gratitude. Every day, find a way to be grateful for something for yourself and for something for the people around you. And even if you have to reach and find it, you can go in spite of. My foot didn't get run over by a car today. Right? Even if it's just for the breath in your lungs and your ability to get up tomorrow. Sometimes it feels like we're at the edge of our rope like that. But even at that moment, you've got something to be grateful for. And let me tell you, that's the first step to connect with God. And what I know is that when we connect with God, everything else falls in line. Everything else unfolds with grace. Everything else brings to us that which we have come here to experience on purpose, because we were created on purpose, because we are loved, supported, and we each have something to share with this life. And so what I know is that each of you are a blessing. And as we go through this week of Thanksgiving, I know that you are blessed, and so it is.